is a comment from Atenkosi. How did you validate the results? What are your findings?
Yeah, the result was validated with ranking Laka scale, whereby the mean score was calculated, and this gave us this shows us and tells us how the workers, based on the questionnaire that was administered to them, of what it was really affecting them, that what is really motivating them not to work better than the way it was. So we're able to, the Laka scale was used from 1 to 5 rank, and then we were able to calculate the mean score.
Thank you for that response, Francis. I'm not
Thank you,
sure
Prof.
if hello. I'm not sure if any further questions. I'm monitoring the chat. Okay, then thank you very much for that presentation, Christes. Apologies, perhaps my pronouncement of your first name and surname is lacking. My apologies if it is.
Prof, you are right. It's correct.
Yeah.
You pronounce it well.
Yeah, and then I'm never sure with certain brothers and sisters from Africa if the first name and surname's been transposed. And I have to be very careful when I publish with Nigerians in journals and conference proceedings because they switch names. And I understand and appreciate the convention. So yes. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
And yes. And,
stop sharing my slide.
Yes, you can stop sharing. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you facilitating the?
Hi, Prof. So you will be next, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Edwin.
Thank you so much.
So yes, I'm not sure who I hand the chair over, probably to Edwin. It's indeed a pleasure to present the presentation, the role of the fourth industrial revolution in enhancing performance within the construction industry. I first need to acknowledge the principal co-author, Matthew Kehoe. He is in fact a BSc Honours Construction Management graduate. He was in the Honours class of 2019. So this paper emanates from his Honours treatise study. I just need to, right. By way of introduction, we have referenced the construction industry indicator report from a specific year, courtesy of the Construction Industry Development Board. And in summary, clients were neutral or dissatisfied with the performance of contractors on 18% of the projects surveyed. They were neutral or dissatisfied with the construction schedule performance of contractors on 26% of the projects. That's slightly more than a quarter. Approximately 13% of the projects surveyed had levels of defects which are regarded as inappropriate. There was a noticeable increase in the level of defects over the period 2012 to 2015, and that is in fact a period of 4 years. Contractors were neutral to satisfied with the performance of clients on 18% of the projects surveyed, which of course highlights the issue that performance on projects is multi-stakeholder contributed to and driven. And lastly, contractors were neutral to satisfied with the quality of tender documents and specifications obtained from clients on approximately 70% of the project surveyed. Contractors were neutral to satisfied with the management of variation orders on 24% of the projects surveyed. 60% of payments to contractors were delayed for longer than 30 days after invoicing. The recommendations of the tender committee were overruled in the award of approximately 9% of public sector projects. And lastly, H&S on construction sites as well as transportation to the sites remains a concern. One reviewer insisted that we actually define the fourth industrial revolution, and we use the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, that is the CSIR as we all know it, or certainly South Africans. And the CSIR refers to the fourth industrial revolution as a collective term for technologies and value chain organization which draw together cyber physical systems, the Internet of Things, and the Internet of Services, together with other emerging technologies such as cloud technology, big data, predictive analysis, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, agile and collaborative robots, and additive manufacturing. Autodesk and the Chartered Institute of Building, which is a very well-known, the authors of a very well-known Industry 4.0 in construction report, contend that digital technologies are transforming every industry, and construction is no exception. So, given the challenges experienced, the advent of 4IR, a pilot exploratory study, please note, was conducted to investigate the perceived potential, please note perceived potential of 4IR technologies to improve aspects of performance in the South African construction industry. And there we've scheduled 5 objectives, which in fact we will address during the presentation of the research findings. We do not want death by PowerPoint to occur. The research method and sample strata, the study was quantitative in nature. Questionnaire survey of 125 medium to large contractor members of the Eastcape Master Builders Association in the Port Elizabeth region, not in East London and not in George, for those who are South African. 50 members were surveyed by directing them to an online link, 45 via email, and 30 were handed print copies. That totals 125. 15 delivered online, 4 delivered by email, and 5 print were fully complete and returned to the researcher, which is the lead co-author, which equates to a response rate of 19.2%. The lead co-author opted for concurrence responses. It can be debated. And of course, that entailed the presentation of a range of statements. And Table 1 presents the extent of respondents' agreement with productivity, profitability, and 4IR-related statements. It's notable that poor labor productivity negatively impacts project profitability. The concurrence there was between agree to strongly agree, because of the mean score of 4.46. The second statement, you will note, has a mean score of 3.67. The construction industry faces poor levels of project performance. And more importantly, the third statement there, of course, links 4IR in terms of a mitigating intervention relative to productivity. And that achieved a mean score of 3.65. And following that, a further 4IR link statement, concepts of 4IR have relevance to productivity in the construction industry. And I'll skip to the last statement. Implementing 4IR is too costly and the benefits do not outweigh the initial capital outlay. So although this is perception related, note that the concurrence there was disagreement as opposed to agreement oriented, because that statement is in fact untrue. Moving on to the second batch as such of findings, the frequency at which phenomena occur according to respondents. You will note that projects being completed late, not on proposed that because of performance-related issues and project delays, both the mean scores are in fact below the midpoint of 3, which indicates that the perception is that those two phenomena occur infrequently as opposed to frequently. However, I must just add that both mean scores are not too far from the midpoint of 3. Table 3, the extent of respondents' agreement with project delay, performance, and 4IR related statements. You'll note that there are 7 such statements, and the highest level of concurrence is relative to software such as BIM can lessen delays on projects, which of course has been confirmed by findings published in the literature. And then the third one, principles related to 4IR have the potential to alleviate major project delays. A mean score of 3.55, not in the upper range, but nevertheless above the midpoint of 3. The fifth statement, principles related to 4IR can control issues such as time and budget overruns, indicating further perceived potential for 4IR interventions. And then the next statement, which is in fact the sixth one, the industry will be able to successfully implement 4IR to monitor and deal with delays. That means scores marginally above the midpoint of 3. And then the last statement, principles related to 4IR have no relevance to project delays and the improvement thereof, which of course is in fact false and supported by a low level of occurrence, in fact disagreement. Moving on to table 4, which is in 2 parts, the extent of respondents' agreement with skilled labor and 4IR related statements. You will note that the first mean score is 4.63 relative to skilled labor plays a vital role in the completion of projects. And of course, this is one of the major issues in not just the South African construction industry, but construction industries worldwide. There is in fact a shortage of skilled labor. And of course, that is supported relative to the second statement, the mean score being 4.17, which is in fact very close to that upper range of greater than 4.2, less than equal to 5. And then, of course, what is important, the fifth statement, introduction of 4IR will create new and specialized roles in the industry. Of course, there's the perception, which has been documented globally, that Industry 4.0, 4IR, whatever, will actually result in unemployment. The next statement, 4IR's result on skilled labor will increase project performance. And that ultimately is the issue, because the construction industry needs to improve performance, not just on a project or at a project level rather, but at an industry level. And the biggest challenge is reflected in the last statement. The industry is faced with a poor image of dangerous and labor-intensive work. And there's agreement as opposed to disagreement there, the mean score being 3.43. And of course, there is potential for 4IR in the form of robots and other related interventions to mitigate hazardous and risky work. I'm going to skip the last, perhaps you should just focus on the last statement. 4IR will result in job losses. It can be debated, as alluded to a few seconds ago. That mean score is 2.42. So it's below the midpoint of 3 and more disagreement than agreement. Table 5 in 2 parts, extent of respondents' agreement, the construction process and activities related statements. You will notice there are 2 mean scores in the upper range, greater than 4.2, less than equal to 5. That means or indicates the concurrence is agree to strongly agree, strongly agree. Automation and labor intensive activities will increase productivity, enhance project performance. That is a given, as all we researchers know. the human element in construction activities will always remain a key component. And that is important to bear in mind when we implement industry or 4IR technologies. The second part of the table, table 5B, the industry is willing to introduce new methods which are related to 4IR construction 4.0. Notable there that the respondents' response or concurrence is more disagreement than agreement, because it's the 2.68 is below 3. So there's a perception that our industry is not willing. And then the construction industry does not have the ability to implement improved methods of construction. This repeats an earlier finding, so there's disagreement. In other words, the perception is the industry does have the ability to do so. Conclusions. Given the size of the sample stratum and the response rate, the findings cannot be considered definitive in any way, but they're rather indicative of what might be issues and challenges. The construction industry is fraught with challenges relating to poor performance and the improvement thereof. Poor performance in the construction industry is attributable to various factors, which we are familiar with in terms of numerous research studies. Of course, there is the challenge of skilled labor shortages, which in turn engenders various forms of poor performance. The industry has a poor image and is not attractive to the younger generation in terms of potential career, which exacerbates the situation. 4IR technologies hold the potential to mitigate the various factors which negatively affect project performance. And the research, which is perception-based, supports the findings reflected in the literature. Recommendations, the benefits of 4IR and the technologies and advancement need to be welcomed and introduced in the built environment on projects. A range of stakeholders should raise the level of awareness relative to the potential implementation of 4IR in the built environment and should promote and facilitate related CPD, which, as many of us are aware, is not been the case to date. It's we researchers that have been driving the agenda. Case studies, of course, entailing the deployment of 4IR technology should be documented and the findings shared. So that would include, among other, actual deployment of drones to determine benefits using such drones vis-a-vis traditional manual interventions. And similarly, the benefits of using virtual reality during training. Tertiary built environment educational programs should integrate 4IR technologies into all possible modules. And of course, accreditation panels should do that. And in terms of project delays, a proper construction progress monitoring system should be implemented. I'm not going to elaborate on that. And lastly, given the increasing shortage of young skilled persons entering the construction industry and the shortage of skilled labor in the industry, there's a need to improve the poor image of the industry and invest in education and training of managers, supervisors, and workers. And of course, especially relative to 4IR technology. And lastly, tertiary education institutions have to develop a cohort of digitalized graduates to meet the demand for new specialized roles and responsibilities. Furthermore, current construction activities should employ greater mechanization and automation of laborious, tedious, and often hazardous tasks. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I just thought I'd give you a little break there to catch your breath after that presentation. So I will just, oh, there is a hand up. Someone is asking a question, I think. Christos Timony.
Yeah.
Christos, yes. You have your hand up. Would you like to ask something?
Good presentation, Prof. My question is, in the era of 4IR 4.0 with artificial intelligence, big information modeling, drone, and the likes, What are the major impediments to this in South Africa? Number one. Two, do you think this will not affect the construction workers on the side? Because there is a belief, or unions believe, that this activity will take away their jobs and they will be jobless?
Yes, sorry, Krasesmi, just repeat the first question again.
Yeah, I said, what are the major impediments to this 4R 4.0 with
Okay.
BIM, artificial intelligence, drone usage in South Africa? Then the second
Okay.
question is that, do you think, because there is a belief, or I don't believe, that this activity will take away the jobs of the construction workers on the sites?
Yeah. Yes, thank you for the question. This particular study didn't pose the question to the potential respondents in the form of what is your level of awareness of or your exposure to Industry 4.0 technologies. Co-researchers and I have posed that question every time we've conducted an Industry 4.0 related survey, and we've actually conducted a fair number now. And we present 11 for Industry 4.0 technologies, and every time only 2 are rated above average. That is in terms of the respondents' awareness of, exposure to, experience with. And if I'm not mistaken, drones, UAVs, is generally ranked highest, followed by, I'm not sure, maybe a virtual reality or whatever, but I can send it to you, Cross Testimony. So that's one of the major impediments. And of course, one of the other impediments is if we do not have documented case studies. There may be some, but they're limited in our construction industry, where we can actually unequivocally indicate to industry participants and stakeholders the actual benefits. I was privileged to attend the CIB W78 conference in Newcastle last September, late September. So please avail yourself of those proceedings, or I can forward them to you, because there were some amazing presentations that actually documented the benefits, among other, the deployment of drones to conduct hazard identification and risk assessment vis-a-vis the manual method or the traditional method that you or any other delegate or I would use. So, and it was actually a Chilean and American study. The second question, yes, we need to ensure that all participants, and that's not just workers, but managers and supervisors and the 3 categories of production workers, do not feel threatened by the deployment of Industry 4.0 technologies. And of course, this is was highlighted by, I think, Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum, because, for example, people may perceive drones to be intrusive and monitoring, say, productivity, as opposed to, say, ensuring that such workers are not exposed to hazards, and if they are. So we need to be very, very careful. It's the same when conducting productivity assessments on site. Yeah, it mustn't be used as a stick to beat people. So it's a very important point that you made, your second question. And it's flagged in numerous papers and in fact texts.
Thank you, Prof. John. Maybe I could just help you there, catch your breath a little bit. I will introduce the next paper if there are no more questions. Is that okay?
That's okay, Ed. Thank you. I'm going to have another swallow of water without the video.
Please go ahead. I will introduce the next presenter. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks to Dr. John Smallwood, Prof. John Smallwood, sorry, I would introduce the next presentation by Akintayo Opawole and Kahilu. And the paper's name is Analysis of Risk Occurrence in Projects Executed by Small and Medium-Sized Contracting Firms. Akintayo, I have made you a co-host. Please share your presentation and set it up in slide mode slideshow mode. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon.
You are audible. We can hear you.
Okay.
Please
Yeah, we can hear
continue.
you. Can go ahead.
I'm
Yes.
Akintayo Opawole. I'm presenting from Nigeria. So I'm presenting on behalf of myself and Professor Kailu Kajimu Sankatu. The title of our paper is Analysis of Risk Occurrence in Projects Executed by Small and Medium-Sized Contracting Firms.
Apologies, Akintayo. Sorry to disturb. Would you mind just upping your volume and your voice just a little bit, please, man, just for everyone to be able to hear you clearly?
Okay,
So,
thanks.
yes, thank you so much. Continue,
Okay.
please.
I'm Akintayo Opawole, presenting on behalf of myself and Professor Kailu Kajimu Sankatu. The title of our paper is Analysis of Risk Occurrence in Projects Executed by Small and Medium-Sized Contracting Firms. Preview of the study. Small and medium-sized construction firms are being encouraged in Nigeria the recent employment challenge in the country. But the question this has posed is, will these firms that are coming up on a daily basis able to survive the multiple occurrence and impact of the construction industry? That is the industry risk factors. So this question calls for empirical assessment of this industry as they are impacted by the construction industry risk factors. And the findings is expected to contribute to design of formalized risk management strategies that could be specific to this category of firms. Researches into small and medium-sized construction firms have increased in recent time in Nigeria because of the contribution of this category of firms to job creation. Recently in Nigeria, we have the small and medium enterprises comprising construction organizations accounting for about 96% of the businesses that contribute to the national employment in Nigeria. But if you look at the projects that are being handled by these categories of firms, the country is in doubt whether these firms will be able to survive the impact of the risk factors that the firms are exposed to in the Nigerian construction context. Project performance as defined by UA 2015 has to do with the extent to which project objectives, that is the time, cost, and quality variables, are met. And this project objectives performance have been established to have a very strong correlation to risk occurrences and impact. As such, there is need to make an holistic appraisal of the small and medium-sized contractors for us to understand how the risk variables that have been evaluated by a number of studies and that have been generalized to the construction firms categories generally, how the small and medium-sized contractors will be specifically impacted by these risk factors, occurrences, and impact. Risk, as defined by Harris and McCarvey 2007, are variables that impact project delivery, that is the various project objectives. So risk management, therefore, is a systematic practice of management policies, procedures, and processes related to activities on the risk analysis, evaluation, and control. That is according to Project Management Institute. So various studies on risk management studies have been carried out. But the problem is most of these studies, they have not really isolated the small and medium-sized categories of the construction firms. And most of the risk management strategies that are available for the construction industry, they are generalized. And the performance of the small and medium-sized contractors, therefore, could be tried to be looked into from the perception that most of the empirical evidences that are available for managing risk factors in construction industry, they have been generalized, which appeared to favor the bigger construction industry more. So the small and large construction industry, they are the masses of availability of research evidence on how management strategies that could suit their operation based on their characteristics will look like. So this study is very imperative to look at these categories of firms and look at the various risk factors that impact the construction industry generally, and try to evaluate which of these risk factors have the greater impact on the small and small and medium construction firms operation. So the purpose of this study is therefore to evaluate the risk factors that impact the delivery of projects that are executed by these categories of firms in order to improve the performance metrics of the projects that are executed by them. So what we did was to assess the relative occurrence of these risk variables and their impact on the project objectives that are executed by these categories of firms. Actually, this paper is just an extract from a larger study that looked into both the occurrence, the degree of impact, and the severity index of the risk factors on the projects that are executed by small and medium size contractors. But this study, we have reported in this study only the risk factors occurrences as they relate to small and medium sized contractors. And the methodology is a quantitative approach. So the study area is Lagos State. And what we generate the list of registered small and medium-sized construction firms from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry from Lagos State. And from this, we are able to sample about 53 that are registered under the category of small and medium-sized firms. So the study population are the architects, the estate surveyors, quantity surveyors, engineers, builders, and project managers that are engaged by these small and medium-sized contractors. And the research instrument is structured questionnaire. So we made a random selection of this number of contractors. So in all, we have the firms represented by 17 engineers, 12 quantity surveyors, 10 architects, 8 builders, and 2 project managers. The data collected were analyzed using percentage, main items, cost and division, and factor analysis. The profile of the respondent indicated that about 21.6% of the firms were owned as sole proprietorship. 29.4% were partnership firms, while the largest, which is around 47.1%, were limited liability company. And the skill level assessment of the firm shows an average of 12 number of employees. Most of the firms have been established for over 50. Most of the firms have been established for over 20 years, and 37.3% of them have been incorporated not more than 20 years. The capital to labor ratio of the firm showed that 15.8% of them were indexed at 1:4, and 1.6 ratio were those is for those that are for about 11.8% of the firms. So the firms with capital to labor ratio of 1.2% were 11.8%. Those with 1:8 were 5.9%, and 2.0% were indexed at 1:15. So the respondents, most of the respondents were engineers, and they represented 33.3%. And the project managers and conservators were represented at 3.9% and 23.5% respectively. Builders were 15.7% of the sample, and the architects were 19.6%, while others like accountants, marketers, etc. were represented at 3.9%. And the respondents, the least academic qualification of the respondents was HND, and it was held by about 31.4% of the respondents. 3.9% of the respondents had a master's degree, and about 27.5% of them had a Master of Business Administration, while 3.9% have a Master of Science. So those that had first degree were represented at 35.3%, and those with a PhD were represented at 2.0%. And most of the beauty of the study is that most of the respondents that were interviewed had one or two professional qualification. Most of them have the application to their professional body, and other application to business-related application. So the relative occurrence of the risk factors indicated that out of the 53 risk factors that were generated from literature review, so that the mistakes, such as the case of when they are making soil investigation, market survey, documentation, interpretation of condition of contracts, and some other issues related to contract administration, were those that top the risk factors that most of these firms have been exposed to. Most of them have also been exposed to risk that relates to change in project scope, price fluctuation, which is a general problem with business in Nigeria, import and custom and security risk. But all those variables, all the 53 variables, they have their mean item score to range between 3.36 to 3.50, which indicates that most of them are, none of the variables that were evaluated are not very significant. So the results indicate that all the risk factors that have been evaluated with respect to the construction industry performance generally, they are very significant to the performance of the small and medium-sized categories, as they all have high possibility of occurrence in the project executed by these categories of firms. So the respondents from both the small and medium-sized category, they were also unanimous. The scoring from the representative from the small and the medium-sized categories, they saw a kind of unanimosity in the scoring of the way the risk variables occur in the projects they have executed. And this is indicated by the t-test value, which is less than 0.05 for all the variables as assessed by the respondent from the two sides of the fence. So what this result is saying that is that these contractors may be exposed to different impact of risk, and suitable management techniques based on the characteristics of the firms will have to be evaluated and developed as different from the general perception of the way risk factors will be managed for the generalized construction firms. So the 53 risk variables were subjected to factor analysis so as to understand the broad categorization of their groups and for a better explanation of how they impact this category of firms. So the result identify 8 principal components with 18 values greater than 1.00 at the point where the screen plot will start to level off. And based on that criteria, we have the first component of the risk factor to be project regulation and administration risk. And under this, we have about 12 variables that were loaded. And on the second component, which was named as social and finance related risk factors, that particular component was loaded with about 7 variables, which include inappropriate construction delivery method, shortage of material, exchange rate volatility, poor safety practice, among others, as indicated. And the component 3 has 5 items, and the component 3 contributes about 8.3% to the overall contribution of all the risk variables. And component 4 also has 4 items, which include mistakes, social unrest of violence, security risk, and non-availability of utilities and basic infrastructure. And that particular component contributes about 7.4% of the total contribution of all the risk variables. Component 4, that one is named as logistic-related risk, and it includes variables like logistics and warehousing, construction permit, operation shutdown, with total contribution of 6.8%. Component 6 contributes about 6.3% of the overall contribution of the variables. And component 7, which is named business environment, that one includes unfavorable climate, like we have the case of high interest rate and volatility of government policy on small and medium-sized construction firms. So all those variables, they cumulate to the component 7 of the risk variables. And lastly, component 8, which is named project management. That one is loaded with operation order, issue, communication, geotechnical uncertainties, and with a total contribution of about 5.9% of the overall contribution of all the variables. So from this study, we are able to understand that small and medium-sized contractors are likely to be impacted by all the construction industry risk variables. And as such, we have classified these risk variables into 9 major components. So the representatives from the small and the medium-sized groups, they were also unanimous in their evaluation of these risk variables, which means that the risk factors they are real and they demand attention, and they demand specific empirical assessment and management procedure, as they will be managed from the way the bigger construction industry will manage the construction industry risk factors generally. Of course, this may explain the reason why most of the projects that are handled by these small and medium-sized firms are not really performing well, because the management strategies for all these risk variables appears to have been generalized for them. So this study has to some extent carved out the extent to which the construction industry risk variables occur in the small and medium-sized construction firms as different from the generalized construction industry. So the findings goes to suggest that appropriateness of similar management techniques for firms in the small and medium-sized category, but which may not necessarily work for, or let me put it this way, which means that the management strategies that have been adopted by the bigger firms and that have been perceived to have worked for the construction industry generally may not really do well for the small and medium-sized contractors. So with slight deviation of these findings from previous studies on risk management, which were generalized to the construction industry at large, this category of firm may be exposed differently, and as such, more research efforts have to be put forward to cover this category of firm and to make a specific assessment of risk occurrence impact and the severity index of these risk variables on the firms. So this study could be extended by analyzing the impact of these risk variables. As I've earlier said, that is a broad study out of which we have just carved out the occurrence component. So the study will be extended to impact and the severity assessment of the risk variables, which will enable impact and management models to be developed for the small and medium-sized category of firms. Thank you. Hello?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akintayo. Are there any questions for Akintayo? A very rigorous study, especially in terms of statistical analysis. Thank you, Akintayo. Perhaps there are questions despite that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, guys, please post or pose your questions in the chat if you have any. I'll give you guys a minute. Should anyone
We
have
may
some questions,
be,
if you would like to speak, please end. Yeah, and
may be experiencing conference fatigue, Edwin.
there's a question. Yeah. Yes, Prof.
There's a question here
There is a question from Professor
David Edwards.
Yes.
He firstly notes, comments, that was a very good presentation, as I also mentioned or perceive. His question is, how would the industry practitioners use this work, and what is the major impact of the work? Now, I know David Edwards very well. He's one of those rare academics that interface extensively with the industry, and it's very important that we as academics, how can I say, have an impact on the industry by, among other, interfacing with them. So I know the context of David's question, or understand the context. So how would the industry practitioners use this work, and what is the major impact of the work? Akintayo, if you please.
Thank you so much. The way it will help the industry, as I've said, we have a number of small and medium-sized contractors coming up, and they are being encouraged by the government, not only in Nigeria, because they have been very instrumental to job creation. But if you look at the projects, the performance of these contractors in project delivery, you see that it's like uh, most of them are not likely to survive existence in the industry based on the stakeholders' perception for their performance, the extent of time overrun, cost overrun that come up from their project. And if you look at this problem, it's a general construction industry problem, but it has been approached from a different perspective.
Apologies,
Okay.
Akintayo, apologies,
Yes.
sorry.
Okay.
Prof. David has asked that you speak a little bit closer to your microphone so that he can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. What I'm trying to say is the researchers have been looking at a way of redeeming the image of the construction industry with respect to the performance of the project objectives. And these days that small and medium-sized contractors are coming up, see that it's like they are destroying the image of the industry more. So, and the fact that the industry is not performing well has triggered a number of studies which are mainly focused on the risk factors that impact the industry performance. But most of these studies that are available, they have been generalized to the industry, forgetting that most of the jobs at some level they are handled by small and medium-sized contractors, and the perception is that the generalized risk management approach for the construction industry will work the same way for the small and medium-sized contractors as they work for the bigger firms. That is not very true. So what this study is trying to do is to make a specific evaluation of, or let me say identification of the risk factors that could pose threats to the performance of the small and medium-sized contractors, so that the research attention could now be put on them now, so that by the time we are able to develop specific management approach to risk factors that impact this category of firm, they will be able to come up, and the objective of government encouraging them to come up will be realized. So they will be able to perform better, because if you look at the management strategies, techniques, and all sorts that are suitable for the bigger firms, they are not working for these small firms. So we need this information to guide the operators of the industry, to guide the government, and to guide the professionals, so that they could dedicate more efforts to solving the risk variables that are specific to the small and medium-sized contractors.
Thank you, Akintayo. Prof. David, I hope that was able to clarify what you were asking. Akintayo, Prof. David has posted something in the chat. Please read through it to hear what he is saying there. Thank you.
Okay.
Tayo and David need to have an offline chat as such. Otherwise, we're going to lose time.
Thank you.
Yeah. The host, sorry, Mr. Host. So, Mr. Host, you're going to introduce the next speaker as agreed between you and I. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to make a point or a little note that we're just going to swap two presentations at this point to give Prof. John Smallwood a little bit of a breather, as he was supposed to present, but I will be moving to the next paper, which will be taken over by Chike Zerum Okorafo, and the paper's name is Quantity Surveyors' Role in the Construction, Health and Safety Management in Nigeria, which is written by Iruka and Dr. Victor. Chike, are you there? Are you able to take over, share your screen? And please put it in. I'm just gonna stop sharing. I've removed, yes. Hello, Chike.
Yes, I'm here. I'm trying to share my screen, please.
Thank you so much, yeah. And then you just put it in a slideshow mode. Thank you.
Is it visible to all the delegates?
Yes, but it needs to be in the slideshow presentation mode. So on your bottom, yes, there, next to the 91. Thank you.
All right.
The floor is yours. Please speak closer to the mic. Speak a little clearer and louder so that everybody can follow through. The floor is yours. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Chike Zerum Okorafo. I am here to present on behalf of Dr. Iruka Anugo and Dr. Victor Okorie. Let it be on record that Dr. Iruka Anugo wanted to present his paper, but due to unforeseen circumstances beyond his control, that is why he declined, and he asked me to help me out in that regard. The title of the paper is Quantity Surveyors' Role in the Construction, Health and Safety Management in Nigeria. Construction projects are considered as one of the most hazardous workplaces worldwide. When it comes to Nigeria, construction ranks the highest sector with imminent accidents and fatalities, which has resulted to economic liability to construction professionals and construction stakeholders at large. Basically, the authors is trying to look at the role of the quantity surveyor in enhancing health and safety management in Nigeria. So I will quickly go to research methodology. The study utilizes a qualitative and quantitative approach in doing justice to the problem at hand. A total of 150 questionnaires were distributed among professional registered quantity surveyor in Southwest Nigeria, of which 70 questionnaires were returned and found useful for the said purpose. While 5 selected registered members were used in qualitative studies, vis-a-vis 3R, member NIQS, and 2 are fellows of the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors. This approach was elicited in order to garner more input towards understanding the focus of the studies. From the figure on the screen, it can be deduced that 71% of respondents have been involved in constructional activities for the past 10 to 15 years, whereas 29% have been involved between 1 to 5 years. These further justify their input of the said studies in the sense that they have more knowledge and experience to deal with the problem at hand. I will not bore you with the figures. Let me go straight to the findings. From the wide screen, Table 1 showcases the questionnaire administered to the 150 registered members of quantity surveyors in Southwest Nigeria. And the following were the results. From the table, it can be deduced that item number 1, inadequate facilitation of financial provision for health and safety in the BOQ, is a result of quantity surveyors' lack of earnest commitment, which ranks 3.51 in mean item scores, followed by the QS usually fail to ensure that the contractor has made adequate financial provision for health and safety, which rank 3.49 on MIS. On the bottom of the list is poor choice of procurement systems, ranks 3.13, followed by inadequate project duration estimation, which ranks 3.19 on MIX. Therefore, from the table 1 on the wide screen, it can be deciphered that inadequate facilitation of financial provision for health and safety in BOQ is as a result of quantity surveyors' lack of earnest commitment. This was considered a major issue as having a significant negative impact towards enhancing health and safety practices in construction activities. Also, the lack of pre-qualification of contractors, history of health and safety practices during the appointment of contractors by the QS has undermined serious effects on H&S practices in implementation of construction processes. In looking at the qualitative approach, like I said earlier on, 5 interviewee was utilized in the said exercise. 3 are MNIQS and 2 are FNIQS. In the interview excerpt, interview question number 1 says that as a construction cost expert, do you make adequate financial provision for health and safety in your bills of quantities and other contract documents such as condition of contracts? From the wide screen, the interviewees all says yes, that they ensure that adequate funds were allocated for project health and safeties in the BOQ as provided by Building Engineering Standard Method of Measurement in Nigeria. Also, one of the fellow NIQS posted that Clause 36 of the General Conditions of Contract from the Bureau of Public Procurement in Nigeria empowers quantity surveyors to make financial provision for project risk, safety, and welfare of workers on site. Therefore, quantity surveyors, as cost experts in the construction industry, have the duty and responsibility to ensure that adequate funds were allocated for project sites and health and safety management. In interview 2, the summary of SR says as thus: from questions, as one of the design team and cost advisor to the clients and contractors, do you consider contractors' health and safety competencies as one of the important criteria during pre-qualification, final selection, and award of contracts to contractors? Here in this case, there are different opinions regarding the questions. Some are for yes and some are for no. The one that answers here says that we consider project health and safety as important as other project parameters such as cost, time, and quality. One of the senior fellow of Nigerian Quantity Surveyors made a contradictory statement saying that in Nigeria, contracts are awarded on political patronage, not on competencies. In this case, it jeopardizes health and safety management protocol on site. That also corruption is endemic in that climb. Furthermore, one of the interviews stipulated that project completed with flaws in terms of site accidents cannot be said to be successfully completed. Obviously, the resulting effects of lack of commitment and unethical behavior by client will result to high fatality rate in construction projects. Based on the research results, it can be concluded that lack of earnest commitment by the quantity surveyors towards integration and facilitation of financial provision for H&S items in the contract documents, such as BOQ, could contribute to high rates of accidents. Also, the study recommends that the QUS must ensure that adequate financial provision for health and safety items are made during the initial stage of the project. Finally, the QUS should demonstrate earnest commitment and active leadership towards promoting health and safety practice in the construction. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, which reflects the status quo in Nigeria. There's a question from David Edwards. Is there not, is the situation substantially different in Nigeria versus the rest of the world? And could you, as a researcher conducting research in Nigeria, not make use of the findings of studies conducted globally in, say, the UK or the USA? I think he may be interrogating the research gap. Perhaps you could elaborate.
I don't know, is it an observation or suggestion or a question? Because I see it's like a suggestion. Hello, Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's an observation / comment. Sorry, I'm trying to switch my camera on. So was the research gap the contribution of quantity surveyors to construction health and safety in Nigeria?
Okay, I can't answer the question now because I'm not the originator of the paper, but I can take the question on behalf of Dr. Iruka and Dr. Okoli.
Yeah. Yes, of course. I think, David, if you're listening.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Yes.
I will move on. And the other thing is, Ziki actually needs to, Chiki needs to get to the other room B as he is presenting next in the other room. Okay. So I will go ahead and present or introduce the next paper.
Which is me.
Oh yes, no, I will do the honors. So thank you, Chiki. For presenting Dr. Victor and Erika's paper on their behalf. I will now move backwards and go to Prof. John Smallwood's presentation, which is on the erroneous use of the term construction project manager in lieu of construction manager in South Africa. I hope I said that term accurately, Prof. John, as I have never heard of such a word, but please, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
I'm just trying to pull the presentation up too. Thank you, Chair. I firstly need to introduce the principal co-author, Tato Taje, a further BSc Honours Construction Management graduate. I'm not 100% sure which year he was in his final year, that is honours. It wasn't last year. I suspect it was 2018. Anyway, the host, the caretaker chair, has highlighted the title of the presentation. Thank you for that. Why are these things not? Yes, I'm backing out here with my presentation. I don't know why it's not. Can you see it, Chair? Okay, Chair. In the delay.
Sorry, Prof. John.
Yeah.
Were you asking something? Sorry, I looked away for a moment.
Can you see the presentation?
It's perfect. It's in presentation mode. You can just start and then carry on. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Given the misconceptions with respect to the functions fulfilled by CMs and CPMs, that's construction managers and construction project managers, and the interchangeable use of the terms, a study was conducted, the aim being to evolve a range of interventions to address the misconceptions within the construction industry. The construction management and construction project management are one and the same. Now, that statement is made within the context of South Africa, and the situation is exacerbated by the use of certain terms in other countries globally. There is a fairly common understanding within the British Commonwealth as such as to what a construction manager is and what a construction project manager is. But of course, construction management's also a procurement system in the United States of America. I do not want to complicate the presentation too much, but experience and anecdotal evidence in South Africa indicates that, for example, general contractors will refer to the contract manager and, in cases, site manager as the project manager. And it contributes to a lot of misunderstanding. Furthermore, there are many stakeholders within the South African built environment and the contracting sector that are confused in terms of what the two functions fulfill. Within the context of South Africa, it's exacerbated by the fact that construction management as a qualification is the gateway qualification for registration as a construction project manager. For example, our program, which we've offered, will have offered for 50 years next year in 2021, has produced a large cohort of construction project managers. What happens in practice is that our construction management graduates practice as construction managers within the general contracting environment for a period of, say, 5 to 7 years, and then they, I won't say they upgrade themselves, but they evolve into construction project managers. So that's the reality, and I would argue the situation is similar relative to other tertiary built environment programs that offer construction management. It's likely that that is what they experience. So yes, the objectives have been recorded here on Introduction 1 and Introduction 2. So firstly, to determine or investigate the perceived importance of construction management and construction project management with the industry, and whether the perceived importance influences the use of terms. Determine what contributions each of these professions offered to the overall success of a construction project, and whether the perceived contributions influence the use of terms. Gain insight as to what each profession entails by comparing the two professions. Identify the primary competencies, roles, and responsibilities of CM/DPM. In terms of the research method and sample strata, quantitative study was undertaken using a questionnaire, which was circulated by the lead researcher being the BSc Honours Construction Management student. There are 17 questions, 9 demographic and 8 subject related. 6 of the subject related were closed-ended, of which 4 were 5-point Likert scale type questions. A further 2 were open-ended. The questionnaire was sent to 40 potential respondents who were either approached directly or contacted by either telephone or email to participate in the study. And they were selected because they work in the built environment, and the researcher is either familiar with the organizations they work for or contacted them through other built environment practitioners known by the researcher. So you could argue it is in fact a convenience snowball sample. 24 questions were complete and returned by respondents, which equates to a response rate of 60%. We, that is the student and myself, had hoped to secure the so-called magic number of 30 questionnaires, which is deemed to be appropriate, or the limited number of questionnaires in terms of statistical analysis. So yes, table 1 presents the importance of 5 built environment disciplines in terms of the successful delivery of construction project. Of course, we can debate what is successful, but yes, there are 5 disciplines, mean scores between 1 and 5, based upon percentage responses to a scale of not important to very important. It's notable that all 5 have mean scores in the upper range, so more than important to very, very important. You can see from the percentages there, it's more than important to very important because most of the responses are relative to points 4 and 5 on that scale. The construction manager there recorded a very high mean score, 4.92, just 0.08 below 5. Engineer, notable 4.63, actually above construction project manager. quantity surveyor fourth, and architect last but not least. Hopefully we do not, or this doesn't offend architect. Table 2, the importance of level of contribution a CPM makes during the 6 project stages of a construction project. I need to elaborate here on in terms of the overarching statutory Built Environment Council, which is the Council of the Built Environment, and the 6 sub-councils, one of which is the SACP-CMP, which registers construction managers and construction project managers, and in fact, construction mentors and 3 categories of construction health and safety practitioners. We all use these 6 stages, which you can, excuse me, you will note there, I've included S1, S2, S3. So obviously international delegates are not necessarily familiar with our 6 stages. But in essence, stage 1, 2, and 3, you can see the design, constitute the design process, and then stage 4 there constitutes the procurement process, and stages 5 and 6, the construction process. So you could argue the South African Built Environment statutory organizations have fleshed out those 3 traditional construction processes. But more importantly, yeah, in terms of the contribution of a CPM, and then note that that's importance, it's not extent. And you'll notice that there's a joint first. There was obviously no difference in the standard deviation, I believe. We can debate that as well, but it was notable the CPM actually makes a more important contribution during stages 5 and 6, which are in fact the construction stages, than the other stages. But this, of course, is based upon perceptions of respondents. A notable tender documentation and procurement, which is stage 4, is ranked 3rd. And yes, S1, S2, S3, and obviously S1 would be, for example, include client briefing, obviously, and the development of the project charter. But that's a very important stage as far as construction project management is concerned. Our interpretation, of course, is that the joint first ranking of stage 5 and stage 6 is probably attributable to the amount of coordination and review of design and related. But yes, we would have expected a greater importance during the early project stages. In table 3 presents the importance of the level of contribution of CMAs during the 6 project stages of a construction project. Notable the first 2 stages 5 and 6, more than important to very, very important, not an unexpected finding. Construction documentation and management, that's the actual construction process, is ranked first, but mean score 4.33. Remember, in the case of the construction project managers, it's actually 4.54. And then project closeout, which of course is commissioning, includes commissioning, important stage for both CMs and CPMs, but 4.29. And yes, tender documentation and procurement is actually ranked 3rd. And then it can be debated to what extent the CM is involved in stages 1, 2, and 3. In fact, unless they're a design build contractor, they're actually not involved in stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Of course, design development stage 3 kind of flows over into stage 5, for example, where shop drawings relating to specialist contractors' work are evolved and reviewed, etc. But certainly if a construction manager was involved in a design build capacity, then they would contribute during stages 1, 2, and 3. Table 4 presents a comparison there of the importance and level of contribution of a CPM and CM. And yes, I have highlighted it, but this table provides a snapshot thereof. The important point being is that the respondents, as I said, perceive the contribution of both to be more than important to very, very important during stages 5 and stage 6. So that was a notable finding, and in fact may contribute to the erroneous use of terms. Table 5, occurrence with respect to statements relative to the different similarities and relationships between the CM and the CPM. Cooperation, communication, cohesion between a CM and a CPM is essential for the successful execution of a construction project. And we included T because it is true. And you'll see that the mean score is very high. Agree to strongly agree, 4.79. So to the next statement, the mean score is very high there. Both the CM and CPM must have favorable personal attributes to manage people, processes, and responsibilities. So personal attributes being interpersonal skills, which among other includes communicating, oral, written, graphic, and of course specifically the ability to persuade and influence both the CM and the CPM within their respective functions. The CPM, obviously, the design team, the construction manager, obviously the construction team. So that was a notable finding there, and of course can lead to the erroneous use. The CPM oversees the execution of the entire project. That is true, 4.42 mean score. The CM oversees the construction of the building, T, and here we have a high mean score, 4.33. A CPM can manage and oversee more than one project simultaneously, true, 4.29 mean score. And then we addressed whether CMs and CPMs should be registered. It's actually a requirement, but not a legal requirement right at this point in time, because the identity of work was opposed by our competition commission. And there we've mentioned the Chartered Institute of Building in the case of the CM, and the Association of Construction Project Managers, or the Chartered Institute of Building in the case of the CPM. So yes, we do not want to labor the issue. We have time constraints. Just the working from the last statement now, the roles and responsibilities of a CM and a CPM are similar. We didn't say alike. We said similar, and that is false. And the mean score there is 3.117. A CM can manage and oversee more than one project simultaneously. That's true. 3.42 mean score. And the third last one there, CPM can be employed as a CM, and that is in fact true. And the mean score indicates concurrence therewith, which of course can contribute to the erroneous use of terms. And then a CM can be employed as a CPM. That's the third statement from the top, 3.83 mean score, and that is also true. And this is part of the problem because due to career progression, CMs generally evolve into CPM. So yes, practitioners responsible for the production on site within respondents' organizations. Note production on site, and we can see the foreman 42%, rounded off, site manager, site agent 25%, construction manager 12.5%, and then 8.3%, 8% of the respondents actually identified CPM. Moving on to table 7, practitioners responsible for managing the entire construction project from including the professional team. So there were multiple options, and this is because not all principal agents are construction project managers. We would argue that most large construction projects in South Africa are actually project managed by a registered construction project manager, but it's not a case of carte blanche. Architects and engineers are often appointed principal agent, even in this era, 2020. Conclusions: construction management and construction project management are two distinct disciplines and professions within the built environment. their roles and responsibilities differ throughout a construction project, but they do share some similarities. That is the two professions. They both should have favorable personal attributes to manage people, processes, and responsibilities. And of course, the common competencies and attributes, and I say common, contribute to the erroneous use of project manager for a person employed by a contractor managing projects, and the use thereof is to highlight the status of the aforementioned. The research revealed that the CM and CPM are both very important built environment practitioners in the construction industry. CPMs contribute more to projects during stages 1 to 3 and to a degree stage 4 than CMs do. However, there's a fair degree of misunderstanding relative to this, as indicated by the findings. Literature indicates that CPMs focus on managing all the project stages, which includes client briefing, design, delivery, procurement, construction, project closeout, where CMs contribute to procurement and focus on construction and project closeout. Due to time constraints as far as the presentation is concerned, we did not include the salient findings of the survey of the literature, that is the review of the literature in the presentation. It's essential that all built environment stakeholders understand the functions of the CM and CPM to ensure that appropriate competent professionals are appointed for the respective functions, as failure to do so could ultimately result in project failure. And this is particularly important when potential employers such as public sector employers include requests for applications for employment, that they use the correct terms. Recommendations: contractors should use the correct nomenclatures for the respective personnel. Leadership should be provided at industry level by professional and employer associations. Our Council of the Built Environment and the South African Council for the Project and Construction Management Professions have clearly distinguished between the two disciplines, because the disciplines and professions have been recognized by the respective categories. Furthermore, the CBEs, the scope of work for categories of registration of the project and construction management professions and scope of services clearly indicate the nature of contributions and stages of involvement. And in fact, this was revised last year because there were anomalies in the case of construction managers, which stages they're involved in, and has been corrected by the CBE. Professional associations should enlighten their respective constituencies regarding the appropriate nomenclatures and encourage members to use common nomenclatures, especially in the case of employer associations, that is representing the contracting community or fraternity. Additionally, built environment programs should include a module to inform students of the roles and responsibilities of the respective project stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. John. Please, should anyone have any questions for Prof, you know what to do. Type them into the chat or raise your hand and I will unmute you and you can then ask Prof. John before we move on to our next and last session of the day. Thank you. I'll give you a few minutes. We have a raised hand from, oh yes, so there is a raised hand and there is a question from Prof. David. Prof. John, would you mind just reading it yourself and answer Prof. David, please? And then
Yes,
I will give
David's question is, did you say that was from an undergraduate, John? You say very good for the stage of education. Interesting presentation as always. Yes, David, it was the result of a BSc Honours construction management study. And I'm delighted to state that the student originated the topic. It wasn't a result of a suggestion by myself as the program director for the Honours program. So that further raises or highlights the erroneous use, because even the students are aware of this erroneous use. And of course they read adverts posted in the media, be it online or whatever, requesting applications for project managers. But in fact, it's actually a construction manager in the form of site managers. So it results in confusion at a very low level. I notice Prof. Haupt is in attendance, and he may have some thoughts. But it is an ongoing problem, and our statutory council needs to lobby, as I say, both the private and the public sector to ensure that the correct nomenclatures are in fact used.
Prof, there was another comment made by Prof. David. Well done to that student. Okay, we still have a raised hand from Jesu. Would you like to ask the question, and I will unmute you?
Yeah, I think Prof. Edward has already asked the question, because I think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to construction manager and construction project manager. There's a lot of confusion all over the places, not only in South Africa, even all over the world. So I think Prof. John Smallwood has already answered the question. But the other question I wanted to included was what about project manager? Are they also different from CM and CPM? They are in terms of their own role, because I think from what I heard from a colleague of mine, that project manager can do most work than CM and CPM.
Yeah, the response is quite short. If you're not registered as a construction project manager, you're not a project manager in the construction industry. So as a construction project manager, you need to have an intimate understanding and appreciation of the built environment. And yes, a generic project manager would not be suited to the project management process within the built environment. Because if you want to manage the design process, you need to have an intimate understanding and appreciation of, among other, structures. And that's why we include the subject structures 1, 2, and 3, environment and services 1, 2, and 3. That's, for example, acoustics in buildings, noise reduction in buildings, fire prevention and protection in buildings, let alone construction technology. So generic project managers are not suitable to the built environment, and in fact, they would not. They would be unlikely to register because of the registration process. Which includes, among other, the report which has to be submitted, which addresses the 6 stages of projects. So the SACP CMP and the built environment within South Africa has actually been very sharp, to use that term, in terms of highlighting construction project manager. Because, for example, every second person is a project manager, and I'm being partially facetious when I say that.
Thank you, Prof. Are there any comments? I know that some participants have just joined room A from room B, so you may have just missed Prof. John Smallwood's presentation. However, I will be introducing the next and the last paper, which will be presented by Frederick Simper and Mariam Akinglolu, which is a scientometric review of student housing facilities, research trends. Fred, are you there? Please open your presentation. You already know the drill. Share it and put it in slideshow mode. Thank you so much.
All right, so good afternoon. I hope I'm clear, just to confirm before I proceed.
You are, Dr. S. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof. So good afternoon and welcome those who just joined us from Room B. So I'm presenting on the topic a psychometric review of student housing research trends. And this study was done by myself and then Mariam Akinlolu. So the outline, I'll go through this outline quickly. So as indicated, our focus was on student housing facilities. And we acknowledge that in any learning environment, facilities play a very important role because they do create the physical environment that promotes the activities of the institution. And therefore, we also acknowledge that every facility within such an environment add value to the institution. And we can identify a whole range of facilities within such setting, but we decided to narrow down to student housing because student housing is also perceived as a very important facility within the institution of higher learning. There are quite a number of studies on student housing facilities. And so for this, we thought that we would want to look at the psychometric review and see the trend, and then also be in the position to identify some of the gaps. Because of a truth, there are quite a whole range of studies on student housing facilities. So we decided to look at the psychometric review, which is non-existent. So as indicated already, the objective was to carry out a psychometric review of student housing studies. We explored the key authors, we looked at the collaboration among authors and countries, and also we did look at the research trends. And the main aim was to identify gaps in student housing facility studies where more research is required or could be channeled. So for the method, we used Scopus Index, and the search was done on the 9th of July, 2020. So the keywords used were student and housing and facility, or accommodation, or hostel, or residence. So our first search gave us 500 documents, and it became very necessary to refine the search. And so we narrowed it down to only articles, conference papers, and books. And obviously also to English being the only language that was considered. And also to be able to relate it more to building facilities, we also decided to look at specific subject areas. And after doing that, the search then reduced the document to 174 documents. After getting the 174 document, we had to also filter so that we could check the relevance of the papers. We could check the coverage of the paper and see whether it fits the purpose of the study. And after doing that, the document were reduced to 65. And this was done by having to review the topics and then the abstract. And then the voice viewer was used as the software to do the analysis. So 4 forms of analysis were done, but generally they were all presented as network visualization maps. But we did a bibliographic coupling of countries, We did a co-authorship of authors, the citation of documents, and also co-occurrence of keywords. Now, just a brief overview of the trend, starting from the publication trend. Now, we realize that over the years, there have been some up and downs in terms of the number of publications. But generally, we could pick up that the trend is actually upwards. And looking at 2020 and looking at the number of publications which were picked up in June, one could see that 2020 is likely to continue with that projection of moving up. Then we also looked at the country in terms of the network, in terms of the publications within the country. So what we did is that we set the minimum document at 2. So if a country had a publication and it wasn't up to 2, then it would not be picked up. And out of the 25 countries, 11 met the threshold. And it's interesting that out of the 11 countries, 4 had links with all other countries, which implied that UK had links with all the other 10 countries, South Africa had links with all the other 10 countries, Malaysia, and then Australia also had links with all the other 10 countries, whilst Norway and Nigeria had links with 7 countries. Now, the remaining 5 countries had links with only 6 countries. And some of the countries which may not be visible would be Italy was one of them, Portugal, Saudi Arabia, USA, and Netherlands. So they had links with 6 countries. But generally, if we look at the level of linkage, if we look at the level of collaboration, one could then say that it looks like the level of collaboration is quite satisfactory, looking at the links thereof. So the second thing we did was to look at the co-authorship network so that we would be able to identify the most influential authors in the field of the study. I mean, in the field in the field. So a minimum number of document and citation was set at 2 and 10. Now, what it meant is that if you had a publication or if you do not have up to 2 publications and at least 10 citations, then it would not also pick up. And after doing that, 8 authors emerged out of the 141 authors. Now, that also gave some form of indication of the relationship and the collaboration. One could also pick up that there were collaboration between 2 sets of authors, Habad Smith and Hassana and Sani Aniba. Generally, these 8 authors had different level of contribution because of the number of citation and then the number of publications from them. Then we further went on to look at the citations of the document. And the minimum number of citation was set at 10. Now, this is different from the initial one because the initial one centered on the authors, but this one narrowed down to the document. And so for each document, it should have been cited for at least 10 times. And 21 out of the 65 documents met the threshold. Now, 3 clusters also emerged from this process. Cluster 1 had 5 documents, and most of the publications were on studentification. Cluster 2 had 3 documents, and most of them were on student housing performance evaluation and satisfaction. And cluster 3 had 3 documents, and most of them were also on satisfaction and user experience. Now, so what we then did was to review all the other topics and see whether or not there is a relationship. And when the review was done, we realized that all other topic or all the rest of the topic had relation with this main 3 clusters which were identified. So further, we then looked at the network of occurring keywords. So the network was set, the number of keywords was set at 3. And out of the 446 keywords, we had only 28 keywords. From this, there were 4 noticeable clusters also. Now, coincidentally, we realized that the 3 clusters that emerged previously had a relationship with the clusters that were identified here, except for 1 cluster which was quite off. But the 3 clusters we saw earlier on also related to this. And what one could pick up from that is that one begin to see that the keywords in the citations gives a similar trend in terms of what has been the trend in the publications in this field of study. So by so doing, we were able to identify some few areas which had gaps. So we picked up that there were very few studies which focused on safety of student housing. So one person, Hassanan, for example, had done expert of student housing safety, but his study was very specific and generally concentrated on fire safety. Therefore, one could then pick up that perhaps if one could broaden the scope of safety studies on student housing facility, that could be great, particularly because safety is now a huge issue, especially when we think of facility management. And therefore, that becomes an important consideration in terms of an area where more research could be done. Now, secondly, there were 2 related keywords. However, they had a very low occurrence. And those keywords were affordable housing and sustainable development. Now, one could therefore indicate that these studies, or this could be an area where some level of effort could also be channeled. Then thirdly, there were keywords with respect to students and then students. However, most of these keywords related to satisfaction and not what students actually want. And it's important that one also begins to look at how we are able to set priority based on the requirement of students, rather than just looking at what they are satisfied with. And so another area where research could also be channeled would be considering the requirement of students where priority could be set, particularly because of the challenge of getting enough funds when it comes to facility management. So what we did in conclusion, we looked at both the keywords, document citation, and 3 main trends of focus of studies were identified within student housing facility. And these 3 were residential satisfaction, performance evaluation, and studentification. The study also identified 3 areas where more research could be done. And these are the sustainable student housing safety, and prioritization of student requirement. Now, it's important to also highlight the limitation of this study. The data set was only from Scopus, and obviously, therefore, one would propose and recommend that the study is expanded so that other database could be or can be included. Another issue could be the inclusion of other languages, because some papers might have been published of great value, but in different languages, which then would also, affect the quality that one is able to put forth. Thank you, and may I ask if there is any question or suggestion or input from anyone? Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Frederick, Dr. S. Are there any questions as requested by Frederick? If not, I think it would be appropriate at this stage, that is given that we have finished session A, as I refer to it, on the second day, to thank the conference organizers for the opportunity to share research findings and contribute to the related bodies of knowledge, and to also thank Edwin, the host, and then thirdly, to thank all the presenters and their co-authors who were not necessarily part of the session for their research work and the papers that they evolved from their research work. So, Edwin, you are the host. Perhaps you would like to say a final word.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you to the last presenter, Fred. Are there any questions, guys, before we move on to the closing session? Any questions, comments towards Fred's presentation or paper? I'll give you guys a few seconds, and I will be then introducing Kahilu, who will be just giving us our closing session. And she has a few pointers that she needs to raise. Then if there are no questions, I will go ahead and I will make Kahilu the co-host. I'm just still, oh, there you are. I found you.
Let me, 1 minute, Edwin.
Oh. Sorry, I missed.
Sorry, hold the floor for me, Edwin, a little bit.
All good, all good. Do your thing.
It's just the light again. So I was just trying to have a little bit of light, but not too much because of my eyesight.
There you are, perfect. Yes.
It's not too dark because the light is off.
Okay. Akintayo, I see you are unmuted. Would you like to say something before we move on?
Thank you for giving the opportunity to present.
Okay, okay, sorry, Kahilo. Yeah.
I say thank you for the opportunity given to present the paper from Nigeria.
Oh, okay. No, it's all good, man. It was a pleasure to have you all in the past 2 days. Those who attended for 2 days. So if that's all you were saying, Akintayo, I will be muting you and I will be giving the floor to Kahilu, who will be then just closing the ceremony for us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Edwin. I think we've all had a really, really wonderful time. Prof. Smallwood, that was nice to hear you. I think there are quite a few things that I would like to say. The first of all is to just extend my appreciation, my own behalf, but also for Asocsa as a whole, from the organizing committee, the steering committee. I'm sure you can all agree with me that we need a round of, emojis just to applaud the organization. Is my internet with this cable? There'll be no volume. Is it stable now?
It's it's getting stuck now and then.
Okay.
But it seems better now. I'm not sure why, but there is a bit of it's getting stuck and then it comes, it's normal again.
Oh, I wonder why, because I haven't used the internet cable. It's the one that was giving me the sound problem. I would have to use headphones. Without the internet cable, the Wi-Fi was much better. But maybe you could just let me know if it gets stuck, then I can use the cable.
Perfect now. It's perfect now. It seems to be working. Thank you.
So really, I just want to give a big thank you to all the organizers, to the participants. The papers were amazing. I acknowledge there've been, it's a learning curve. A number of things maybe that didn't go the way that everyone expected from yesterday, but as you would also see, those were around yesterday and today, that today even went much better.
Sorry, Kahilo. Sorry to cut you.
All the logistics and things we will be working, on a couple of, Edward?
Sorry, so sorry. I would like to suggest something. Maybe we cut off your video, we leave the sound, and we just see if the bandwidth will strengthen up a little bit. Should we try that?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's try that. Let's try that.
Okay, can I just remove stop video? May I proceed?
The flow is all yours. I think you will be much better now.
All right, yeah. Okay, let's try it again and just see. Yeah, thank you so much to all the participants, the beautiful, wonderful papers, insightful. Lots of things that we've really gathered from this theme, and I think it was really a very timely theme that we picked in terms of the technology, how we can optimize it really for the benefits for the construction industry, as well as for the teaching and learning. And the papers that have come through from yesterday centering around that, the things that we shared, including maybe the graduates that we're training. For us, we're coming from the academic, thinking about how can we adapt, how can we be more flexible, but those same soft issues, going through even to the students, making our graduates be industry ready, kind of attributes that we want them to have. So there are issues really that we can take from this conference. There are things that maybe we didn't touch on, but which we can carry on back when we go to take on, but also which we will talk about via our heads forum in terms of just how we can ensure that we stay relevant, as institutions as well as the industry. So from that side, I just want to say really thank you for all the contributions. And we're looking forward to have our post-conference, the papers, the proceedings will be available, will all be communicated regarding that. That is one thing I also just then wanted to bring to our attention. They'll soon be ready. And we also talking about the next conference very, very soon, but we'll also be looking for ideas for all attendees that we have. Like I've indicated, it's a learning curve. We learned from this thinking in terms of how do we make it better. We've been talking about blended learning, flipped classrooms. The same thing we apply with the conference. How do we make it truly blended? It might be in Durban, the way we have the steering committees on the ground there, we might combine, but we may also still allow for participants whom we've heard from different places. We've had speakers from the UK, from Nigeria, from other places, so we can still explore that so that we can still share, interact, and create that knowledge together. Yeah, so that's for the conference. Thank you for that. And we're really growing as the Built Environment Conference, taking it from one level to the next level. So if we can just think even more about themes and see how we want to grow from this conference, what are we going to add to the next to make it even more successful? The other issues might be just issues that I need to bring to you of just, not with the theme so much, but more on the technical aspects, because, for us to run the conference, for us to ensure that it's really to the standard that you want it to be and that we're giving you more value for your money, would also urge the members or delegates who have not yet ensured that the payment is sorted out to ensure that we do that, please, so that we don't have our secretariats chasing after you and thinking, after we've had such a great conference, why are they chasing after us? So please, if you could just assist us when you get back, ensure that your institutions have honored that. So from my side and the side of the conference, I may just ask before I finally say, declare the conference closed, maybe if there's still a word that may want to come through from any of the, maybe who are the chairs or any of the keynote speakers, if there's something really pressing that they did not say, or the organizing committee that they needed to say, you will have like 2 minutes, please. Is there anything maybe important that we still needed to say to each other before we all disperse? From anyone?
Thank you, President Shakantu. I think from my side and from Mariam's side, I just want to confirm that this was the last time that we will be physically involved in organizing an Asocsa conference. However, we will be a resource to assist a new team to continue what we've been doing for many years. This was the first experience we had with a virtual conference, and I must say that from where we sat, it exceeded our expectations. And thanks to everyone who participated to make it what it actually is. So I believe it's time to hand over the baton to a new team, and I'm almost certain they will do a much better job than we have ever done. And Mariam has to finish her PhD and go on to greater things next year. She will still continue to manage the Journal of Construction, which does need the support of everyone to keep it running. Just one final thing is we do have a Facebook page. So please visit and follow, and that page, there's information on there. And the website will be up and running. You realize that we've redeveloped it, and it will have a lot more information. So we really would like to have you visit the website fairly regularly. And there are some exciting things coming from Asocsa, which we'll keep you posted on. So from my side, thank you very much, and stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Prof. Theo. And talking about our website, it is really looking, yeah, it's looking very, very nice. And to everyone there, please, if you've got things that you want to get out there, that's a resource that Asocsa has made available from the institutions. If we want to put up things that we need to communicate with others, whether they are positions at our institutions, whether it's information, publications, internationalization, engagement, things that we're doing. We can put it through Asocsa. I see my internet connection is unstable again. I don't know what's going on this afternoon. Maybe it's a little bit tired, but it's a wonderful resource that I would urge all of us to really use. And talking about that, Prof. Theo, Miriam, thank you so much for the work that you've been putting through this. And yes, ending from where I started, to echo what Prof. Theo has said, we are still looking for everyone to give us the support so that we can really take Asocsa forward. A lot of work has gone into it over many years. So it's up to us. It's up to you to really just come in numbers, give the support, and I think we'll be greater, making construction great again here. So from my side, I just want to say thank you as well for the support that I've received. And even for this conference, like we've said, it's not easy to do it this way, but we're learning each and every single day. And I think the next one, whether it will be blended or whichever form it's coming, we're tentatively thinking of next year, maybe around August, September. We also see how the calendar is looking like. So people can volunteer. Let us know where you can come in. There's so much that can go around for every one of us who's in the house, right? So from my side, really is just to say a final thank you. Other information will be on the website regarding the proceedings that will be out, and all other things to do with the AGMs and the Heads Forum and council meetings and things like that. But thank you for making this conference a success. It wasn't going to be without all of your participation. So I extend my thanks, and stay well, keep healthy, keep well, and God bless. Thank you, Edwin.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. I would just like to add something that all the recordings of the past 2 days will be uploaded onto the website pretty soon. So the yesterday's one has finally processed, but I'm just waiting for today's one, which will be only processed by tonight. So probably only the end of the week, the videos will be available should anyone would like to visit them again. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day, and goodbye. Thank you. Thank you, Prof. David.
Okay, yeah, that's about the certificates. Thank you.
Okay, goodbye all. Thank you for inviting me here today, and see you all very soon. Thank you. Bye now.
Go well, Prof. David, and thank you for your presence, for actually hanging out the whole day. You were the first one to attend today, and you are the last one to leave. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It was worth it. A great event, some tremendous proceedings, and very well organised from everyone concerned. So well done, the team.
We appreciate that, Prof. Thank you so much.